The other thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is pixels per inch. There are a couple of industry standards. Pixels per inch refer to basically the density of the image. If you think of an image that has a certain pixel dimension, say 2000 by 1000, that means that there are a certain number of pixels across the top and along the side of the image. The pixels per inch refer to how many of those pixels fit into a 1-inch space, and that can be adjusted. In print documents, the standard has been to make sure that images are at least 300 dpi or PPI at print size. DPI refers to dots per inch, which is a printing term. PPI refers to pixels per inch, which is more of a web-based term. But in a lot of cases, they're used somewhat interchangeably when talking about the size of the image. The thing to keep in mind for a print document is that at the print size, you want to make sure that the image is represented at least 300 dpi. If I look at my information here, the actual PPI for the full-sized image itself is 300, which is the size I want it to be. And it gives me also the effective PPI in my document, which is 942, which is quite large. What that means is I've actually reduced the size of the image itself, and therefore the pixels have gotten closer together to fit the whole image in the specified size in my document. So effectively, it's like there are 900 pixels per inch instead of 300 pixels per inch. What this means is if I want to save file sizes, I can open my image and edit it in Photoshop to the actual size that will appear in my document and make sure that it's 300 dpi or PPI at that size. The standard for print has been 300 PPI. The standard for web in the past has always been 72 PPI, but that's starting to change, especially with a lot of the retina displays and the high-definition screens. So 72 can be a good starting place, but if you know that what you're working on is going to be viewed on higher resolution screens, you might want to make it a little higher, maybe 150. If the resolution is too low, your image will start to look pixelated in its published setting, which looks somewhat unprofessional. So just something to keep in mind when you're working with images. I also want to show you quickly the images themselves. I'm going to zoom in so you can see a little more clearly. I'm looking at this image in InDesign, and it looks a bit pixelated, even though I know I have it at the right setting in terms of final publication. The reason for this is that InDesign will reduce the resolution on the thumbnails so that you can move about the document more easily, and the file size of the document doesn't get overwhelming for the computer's memory. But there are settings in here that allow me either to make the file easier and faster to work with, or slower but clearer to work with. So I'm going to select my page. I'm going to go up to the View menu, and I'm going to look at the Display Performance. If I select Fast Display, you'll see quickly that my images are grayed out, and there's just a gray X representing that there's an image placed there. But that means that I should be able to move through my document very quickly. Especially if it's a long document, it can be useful to go into fast mode if you're not going to be looking at the images. You just want to move around and edit things quickly. The default of display performance is usually the typical display, which gives you this pixelated thumbnail view, so you can understand where the image is, how it's placed, and basically what it's going to look like. But if I want to see what that final version of my image is going to look like in my document, I can go up to View, Display Performance, and say High Quality Display. Now when you look, the image is really detailed and it's lost that pixelation. The thing to keep in mind is that this may significantly slow down the operation of your computer, especially depending on how old the computer you're working with is. So usually it's useful to work in just the typical display and to only quickly go into the high quality display if you need to do something where you need to see the image clearly, quickly.